this revelation. So we have to read this, right, Pallav?
Yes, yes, Rangada.
Okay, so you'll read.
Okay, Rangada.
Okay, read the para and then we'll come back to it. It's
This
not,
revelation of a
it's not a
Mhm.
very, yeah.
This revelation of a highest truth or a highest being, consciousness, power, bliss, and love, impersonal and personal at once, and so taking up both sides of our own being. Since in us also is the ambiguous meeting of a person and a mass of impersonal principles and forces, is at once the first aim and the condition of the ultimate achievement of the sacrifice. The achievement itself takes the shape of a union of our own existence with that which is thus made manifest to our vision and experience. And the union has a threefold character. There is a union in spiritual essence by identity. There is a union by the indwelling of our soul in this highest being and consciousness. There is a dynamic union of likeness or oneness of nature between that and our instrumental being here. The first is the liberation from the ignorance and identification with the real and eternal, moksha, sayujya, which is the characteristic aim of the yoga of knowledge. The second, the dwelling of the soul with or in the divine, samipya, salokya, is the intense hope of all yoga of love and beatitude. The third, identity in nature, likeness to the divine, to be perfect as that is perfect, is the high intention of all yoga of power and perfection, or of divine works and service. The combined completeness of the three together, founded here on a multiple unity of the self manifestation, manifesting divine, is the complete result of the integral yoga, the goal of its triple path and the fruit of its triple sacrifice.
Okay, very interesting para. We'll identify the words and see what he's saying. Okay, so this revelation of the highest truth or a highest being, consciousness, power, bliss, and love, the impersonal and personal at the same time. And so, taking up both sides of our being, since in us also is the ambiguous meeting of a person and a mass of impersonal principles and forces, is at once the first aim and the condition of the ultimate achievement of the sacrifice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines with even a parenthetical sentence in between. So we'll look at each one and see also the parenthetical what he means. Okay, so this revelation of the highest truth and highest being, consciousness, power, bliss, and love, impersonal and personal. So take this whole phrase and we can sum it up in one word. And what is that one word? It's the highest truth, but it's also the highest being. Being means personality, personal. Okay, it's not impersonal. Highest being is the what you call the anthropomorphic idea of God. Okay, he is a person. Okay, but if you use the person, then it becomes the individual. But this is the highest being means the absolute person who is at the highest level. Okay, consciousness, power, bliss, and love. That means all are there. Now, which is that consciousness which is the highest truth, highest being, consciousness, power, bliss, and love, all are there. And at the same time, it is impersonal and personal. Very clearly, that's a supermind. Only in the supermind will you find all these adjectives absolutely applicable. Highest truth applicable in supermind. Highest being, he is a person. You will experience him as a God, as a God, as a person. Consciousness, power, bliss, and love. See, bliss and love may not be there at the higher mind level. Okay? So when all of these are there, very clearly he is referring to the supermind. Now another also added, impersonal and personal. It is both, and that's why it is supermind. If it is only impersonal, it's a spiritual planes of consciousness in the second level. Okay? Very clear. And if it is personal, you have the aspect, you have the personal aspect of the divine, and you may not have knowledge, like in the case of Ramakrishna. He had a personal contact with the divine mother. In his case, it was the divine mother. He's constantly interacting with her, asking her questions, getting guidance, but there is no knowledge until Totapuri came and told him to go up and not horizontal into himself. Okay? So, this whole phrase, very clearly he is talking of the Superman. Highest truth, highest being, also consciousness, power, bliss and love. If you have only consciousness and no power, bliss and love, you are in the Brahman consciousness. Okay? You feel it to be absolutely the last. Okay, so that's one thing. At once, so personal impulse at once. And so, taking up both sides of our being. Which are the both sides of our being? Purusha and Prakriti, spirit and matter. You are not excluding anything. The others are excluding. The materialist is excluding divine, and the ascetic is excluding the world. But we are not excluding any. We are taking up both sides of our being. So very clearly he is referring to his own yoga. Now he is putting a parenthetical phrase, and let's look at the parenthetical phrase. Since in us. Why is he saying since? Because, in the sense of because. And why is he saying because? He is trying to justify both sides of the being. Okay? Because many yogas don't agree with both sides of the being. Okay? Since in us also is the ambiguous meeting of a person and a mass of impersonal principles and forces. Okay? You have to ambiguous means a little mixture, a little bit unclear. Okay? Ambiguous. Meeting of a person. Person very clearly P-cap. Divine with a form. Divine with a very characteristics. You call it the Saguna. Okay? But also a Nirguna, a mass of impersonal principles and forces. What are these impersonal principles? Exactly, consciousness can be an impersonal principle. There is a consciousness which is a substance itself. So that is the consciousness. Power also can be there, but nobody exercising that power. Okay? So that's the impersonal aspect. That's why he's justifying. Okay? And he's saying, and also what about bliss? Bliss may not be there and may be there. If you are lucky, you will get it. Very clearly, when the first time our Sadguru had an experience of the Brahman, he had bliss. Okay? I don't know about love, but he talks of bliss. Ananda, tremendous Ananda. I don't think love can be there because you can't love the infinite. You can love the finite. You can love a person. You can love an object which is, but love at the highest level it is possible, but maybe not at the spiritual level. So that's why he is justifying. Since in us also is the ambiguous meeting of a person and a mass of impersonal principles and forces. So if you remember 2-3 paras before, he has spoken of it. He says when you are in the higher mind consciousness, you have only the sense of freedom and peace and quiet. But as you keep going higher and higher into the element mind, intuitive mind, you start seeing that there is a person also. But sometimes when you are in that personal consciousness, the impersonal disappears. And when you are in the impersonal consciousness, the personal disappears until you go to the highest level. At the highest level, both. Okay. That's why he's saying ambiguous. It's not very clear in the spiritual planes of consciousness. It is either this or that. Okay? And a mass of impersonal is at once. Now I am picking up the sentence again. What is at once? This highest revelation or the highest truth is at once the first aim and the condition of the ultimate achievement of the sacrifice. So he is saying there are two things. One is our aim. Our aim is to go to the supermind. But if you go to the supermind, that's also the condition which is the ultimate achievement of the sacrifice. And what is the ultimate achievement? He is going to tell you now. So just see how he weaves his sentences. You have to aim at the supermind, and the supermind is the condition where your sacrifice will become complete. Okay? So the achievement itself. Now, what is that achievement? He is telling you very clearly. Okay? The achievement itself takes the shape of a union of our existence with that which is thus made manifest to our vision and experience. Not only you see the divine, but you also experience it. There is a difference between vision and experience. I may see something, but I may not feel the impact of it. So that's the experience. Your body, mind, life will react. That's the experience. Vision and experience. And the union has a threefold character. He is explaining now what the threefold character is. There is a union in spiritual essence by identity. You retain your body, mind, life, you may retain, but that is not the essence. So what is the essence? It's your consciousness. But is it only the consciousness? It can also be the power of the divine. It can also be the love. It can also be, in other words, Satchidananda is the essence. And in Satchidananda, your limited Satchidananda in your soul, which is a very individual soul, it becomes one with the divine soul. So essence, first of all, okay? It's like it's like two glasses of water. One glass has got a slight color, which is subtle, and the other glass has got nothing at all. It is absolutely pure white. But if you mix the two, the essence of the first comes into the second. So that's the the essence of the divine comes into your being. It's exactly like that. Okay. Now both the glasses have got equal color. Okay. So that's the first one. Then the second one, union of really is an identity. That's the first one. There's a union by the indwelling of our soul in this highest being and consciousness. Now note the word indwelling. You are living in the house. Okay? You are living, your soul is living in the house of the highest being, but it's not one with the house. In other words, you have entered into the divine and you are enjoying his presence, but you have not become one with him. In other words, there is a relation of love. Okay? Not oneness. First,
Ranganath,
yeah, tell me.
the example that you gave, once the water, if we
Ah.
put both the glasses, it will take that color.
Yeah, that's right.
But once we want no color again, then it is not possible, no? So both are not possible, no?
Okay, okay. That's why all the images that we give are very relative. You should push the image too far. It is applicable only to what we are talking.
No. When we are saying that both can happen at the same time, that is what is not entering into the head. Like it can be
No.
only one. It can be
Yeah,
only one.
that's you are right. Yeah, that's
Not
right.
only this example, but I'm saying like when he's saying that it can be both,
Yes.
you still can't imagine how it can be both.
Okay, okay. I understand what you're saying. And what you're saying is right. Because when you become one with the divine, logically, there can't be any love. Because for love, you need two people, na?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is relatively true. But remember one thing, our logic is not applicable at the highest level. Logic is a very limited type of consciousness. So it is possible to become one with the divine and yet love him. It's possible. That is the so that is the reason why there are so many different theories. I go on telling you na Shankara. Okay. Shankara's philosophy essentially one. So but he also had tremendous amount of shlokas with love and devotion. Okay. So but his philosophy says union with the divine. Then there is the
But Rangata,
yeah,
But
tell
it
me.
can be two at
but
two different times. If we are in
like bliss, love also can be, impersonal, no? In that sense, like bliss, we feel the bliss, we feel the love. It can't be too for someone or just love by itself we can feel, no?
Of course, you are right because you can love everything in the physical world. Like when there is Ananda, okay, yeah,
Yes.
you see animals, you see trees, you see it's impersonal. You like everything. It's not directed only to one thing. That's right.
Yes.
The finite becomes the infinite. You are quite right. Okay. So he's given names also to these realizations. We'll come to that. So now first he said union. Essentially you become one. Okay, like the What we said, the color of one becomes the color of the other. There's no difference. The second is the indwelling of our soul in the highest being. You retain your individuality, but you are in the divine consciousness. Okay, that's having a relation with the divine. This is the Ramanuja theory. Oneness as well as difference. Bheda, Bheda. Bheda and Abheda. That's why it's called Vishishta Advaita, special Advaita. Okay? Then there is the duality. The soul can have a relation with the divine and enjoy love and beauty, but you are separate. The individuality is retained and you have a relation with the divine. That's Madhvacharya philosophy, or also the, I think, Nimbarka is the same. Several. You can have so many different types of experiences. Huh?
So this Vishishta Advaita also, what Aurobindo is telling is also Vishishta Advaita, no? That it can be separate and it can, how is it different? It can be separate and it can be together. So
Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga includes all of them. They are true at the lower levels, but at the highest levels, all merge into one experience. Okay? At the highest level. These people we talked of, Shankara and Ramanuja and Madhvacharya, they are all in the spiritual planes of consciousness, not in the supermental. In the supermental, all these things are contradictory things are possible. Personal and impersonal, finite and infinite, one and many, all are possible. Which is impossible for our mind to understand. Contraries cannot be true at our level, but there they can be absolutely consistent with each other. That's an interesting part. Okay. So now he comes to the third one. Okay. So the achievement takes the shape of a union of our being with that which is thus made manifest, and a threefold character. Union first, identity. Second, indwelling. And there's a dynamic union of likeness. This is the third one. Dynamic union of likeness or oneness of nature between that and our instrumentation. And he's explaining which one is which. Okay. The first is the liberation from the ignorance and identification with the real and the eternal. This is what is normally called the Brahman consciousness, the impersonal aspect. Moksha. Okay. Then there is Sayujya. Sayujya means you become one with the divine. Yuj means to become one. Yujya, union. Sayujya, with union. Which is the characteristic aim of the yoga of knowledge. When you go through Jnana Yoga, the first experience is Brahman consciousness, the self, which is impersonal. Okay. The second, the dwelling of the soul with or in the divine. Now that's interesting. With or in the divine. So with means you are separate. And in the divine means you become one with him. Okay. So see how carefully you have to look at those words. With the divine, you are outside. Your individuality is retained. But you are in the divine, the individuality is retained, but you are one with the divine. Samipya, nearness, or Salokya. In the same world, you are there. These are the two things. Then is the intense hope of all yoga of love and beatitude. When you do Bhakti Yoga, the idea is to get a relation with the divine and enter into him. Samipya and Salokya. Then the third one, identity in nature, likeness to the divine, to be perfect as that is perfect, is the highest intention of all yoga of power and perfection, or of divine works and service. So, divine works and service, very clear, Karma Yoga. Because in Karma Yoga, every action that you do, every emotion that you have, every thought that you have, you are associating with the divine. First of all, you associate. Secondly, you remember and offer. And thirdly, you do it only for the divine. There are three stages. Na? First, whatever you are doing, associate the divine with it. Okay? And that association can take many forms. If you are coming out of your house to go to wherever you have to go, you think of the divine and ask for help. You have associated him with you. Secondly, you offer it to the divine. Okay. Best example is food. When you are about to eat food, you offer that food to the divine. This is something very common in India. Na? We do that. In fact, they do it in the form of an act also. You take water and put it all around the dish. I have seen in my family they used to do that. Okay. My father used to do that. So that is, this whole plate, this whole food is yours. You offer it to them. Okay. So that is one. You associate the divine with whatever you are doing, then you offer it to the divine, and finally you do it only for the divine, not for yourself. Three stages. So that is the karma yoga. But what about the yoga of power and perfection? What's he referring to? Yoga of power and perfection is tantra. Okay, very clearly, it is tantra. So that is the aim of tantra and karma yoga. You put on the nature of the divine. See, Sremda is using words which you have to interpret correctly. Okay? Now, the combined completeness of the three together, founded here on a multiple unity of the self-manifesting divine, is a complete result of the integral yoga. Now he is telling you very clearly, this is the aim of the integral yoga. You are not disapproving of Jnana yoga, you are not disapproving of Bhakti yoga, you are not disapproving of Karma yoga, but you want all of them together. Rather spiritually greedy. Okay, you want all of them together. Then you are more satisfied. The combined completeness of the three together is a complete result of the integral yoga. The goal of its triple path. The triple path is Jnana, Bhakti, Karma. And the fruit of its triple sacrifice. And what is that fruit? Triple fruit. Oneness, intimacy, love and divine, and nature of the divine. Nice para, na? Very clear. So, shall we read the next one? A union by identity. Now he is going to explain a little more about the three different types of realizations. Sayujya, Samipya, Salokya, Sadharmya. He has not used the word Sadharmya here, but that is the path of the Karma Yoga. Sadharmya. You become one with the divine in nature. Okay? So, all your, yeah, please. We read the next one.
A union by identity may be ours, a liberation and change of our substance of being into that supreme spirit substance, of our consciousness into that divine consciousness, of our soul state into that ecstasy of spiritual beatitude, or that calm eternal bliss of existence. A luminous indwelling in the divine can be attained by us, secure against any fall or exile into this lower consciousness of the darkness and the ignorance. The soul ranging freely and firmly in its own natural world of light and joy and freedom and oneness. And since this is not merely to be attained in some other existence beyond, but pursued and discovered here also, it can only be by a descent, by a bringing down of the divine truth, by the establishment here of the soul's native world of light, joy, freedom, oneness. A union of our instrumental being, no less than of our soul and spirit, must change our imperfect nature into the very likeness and image of divine nature. It must put off the blind, marred, mutilated, discordant movements of the ignorance and put on the inherence of that light, peace, bliss, harmony, universality, mastery, purity, perfection. It must convert itself into a receptacle of divine knowledge, an instrument of divine willpower and force of being, a channel of divine love, joy, and beauty. This is the transformation to be effected, an integral transformation of all that we now are or seem to be by the joining, yoga, of the finite being in time with the eternal and infinite.
Again, not a very big para, we can easily do it, and we are going to see it there. Okay, so, a union by identity, this was the first one. Union by identity, you are liberated from the body-mind life. What are you liberated from? You are liberated from the prison house of your body-mind life. and a change of our substance of being into that supreme spirit substance. Now you have to understand this very clearly. The consciousness in us is not pure at all. Okay, it is colored. Okay, these are called sanskaras. Okay, every time a wrong thought or an emotion comes into you, it leaves a little trace of its dirt, and your consciousness is then colored. If anger comes, there's one drop of red that colors your consciousness. Okay. And if there is jealousy, there'll be one drop of green that will come into your okay. Or if there is a sex movement coming into it, that's very natural. But this is what happens actually. If there is a sex movement in you, there is a drop of black that comes and colors you. The mother speaks of one lady, she doesn't specify who, but she saw that blackness. Okay, that's why I'm using the word black. It may not be black, it may be something else for others, but this is what happens. So all this, your consciousness gets colored with all the sanskaras that come. That is the reason why you must not allow any wrong thoughts and wrong emotions to come into you. You have to build a watchman. The watchman must be discrimination and knowledge, and he must be able to keep out all these forces. Then slowly, the purification of the substance happens. So look at it very carefully. Liberation and change of our substance. The very substance of our being starts changing. And I can tell you that the substance of the body also, even the physical substance starts changing. Okay? There it becomes more and more subtle, and all things that are there in the body, the illnesses will come out, the defects will come out, all sorts of things like that happen. The very substance changes, and that substance can be gross in the body, it can be less gross in the vital, it can be even less gross, it can be subtle in the mind. But there is a coloration of all these sanskaras that you have collected over the not only years but lives. All through all your lives, these things are collected. You must not feel negative about it, because that's a normal thing that happens to everybody. Okay, there is a mixture always. If two things come together, there is always a mixture. So this is the important thing that is saying. Change our substance of being into the spirit, supreme substance. Okay. Just as we described now, just now, the two glasses of water, one is slightly pink and the other is white. The pinkness goes into that also. So when your glass of water, which is your being, has got a little bit of black, a little bit of green, a little bit of red, all these will be removed and it will become the pure spirit substance, which is absolutely stainless. That's what he's saying. Okay. It's not something abstract and something subtle, and it's not an image, it's a fact. It's a real thing that happens. Of our consciousness into the divine consciousness, of our soul state into the ecstasy of spiritual beatitude, or that calm eternal bliss of existence. So this is the first, identity. The substance becomes the same. Second, a luminous indwelling in the divine can be attained by us secure against any fall or exile into this lower consciousness of the darkness and the ignorance. Now the word exile is very interesting. You have come from the divine. So what does the word exile mean? It's very interesting. You have been exiled. Okay. Those who were earlier days when people used to be do wrong things, they used to be exiled from the kingdom. Get out. You've got no place here. So how does that exile apply to us? We have come from the supreme and we've been exiled into the forest life of the world and the difficulties of the world. But this is not, you have not been exiled. You have decided to exile yourself. Okay. You have willingly come down as an adventure. Okay. Now the word exile is very interesting, because look at our Ramayana and Mahabharata. Okay. So clearly is it absolutely symbolic, but Sri Aurobindo says it is more than symbol. It is also spiritual truth and also sometimes fact and history. Okay. So here the Pandavas have been exiled into the forest of the world. Okay. They have lost their divinity. They have lost their kingdom. In fact, through foolishness, they played gambling and they lost. Okay, so that's what has happened. Then, so exile. Okay, and Rama also was exiled. And you remember, he willingly went into exile. And then he reclaims his kingdom. So this is the work to be done. This is yoga. You have come down into the physical world, you have been exiled. And that also is a Christian theory, if you remember. Adam and Eve have been exiled from heaven. Why? Because they disobeyed the Lord. That's essentially the same meaning. Okay. Exile by us. But if you have once got into the luminous indwelling of the divine, you are secure against any fall or exile into the lower consciousness. And the consciousness of the lower is darkness and ignorance. The physical world is darkness and ignorance. That's why the symbol of the forest. Okay. The soul ranging freely and firmly in its own natural world of light and joy and freedom and oneness. But this cannot be done in step one. It has to be done by, first of all, by experience. Then slowly, it becomes a realization. So, don't think that it can be done the first time. You have an experience of it. Then you come down again. You are exiled again into your lower consciousness. But when you remember that fantastic experience, you remember it, and then you want nothing else. So the yoga becomes more intense. So, the soul ranging freely and firmly in its own natural world of light and joy and freedom and wonder. When you attain these two things, okay, then since this is not merely to be attained in some other existence beyond, note carefully, he has spoken only of two. He has not yet spoken about the putting on the divine nature. That's what he's going to deal with now. Okay, so he has told you about identity and indwelling. So, Sayujya and Samipya. Now he is going to tell you about Sadharmya, okay, the nature. And he is telling you why it has to be like that. And since this is not merely to be attained in some other existence beyond, but pursued and discovered here also, here in the physical world, okay, it can only be by descent. The knowledge of the supermind and the spiritual planes of consciousness has to come down. By bringing down of the divine truth, by the establishment here of the soul's native world of joy, native world up there. The native world of the soul is not the physical world. The native world is spiritual world and supramental world. Okay? The soul's native world of light, joy, freedom, oneness. The soul's dwelling in the physical world is not native. He has to go back to the nativity and bring it down and make the physical world also his own native world. He has to make that. That's the idea of the integral yoga. Then, a union of our instrumental being. What does he mean by instrumental being? Very clear. Your body, your life, and your mind. Okay. They are the instruments given to you for experiencing the world. They are only instruments given to you. Okay. They are not yourself. But we make a mistake and we think that this is me. So Ramdas says the time comes when you experience the body, mind, life as an instrument in your hand, okay, like a hammer. Normally we never identify ourselves with a hammer or a screwdriver. But in that case, when you go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, you will feel your body, you will see and feel your body like an instrument in your own hand. Okay, you can use the instruments. No less than our soul and spirit must change our imperfect nature into the very likeness and image of divine nature. Why is he saying image? Because in the physical world, you have a body-mind life, and the body-mind life, however divine it becomes, it's only an image. Okay? But even the image must become clear and sharp. Okay? So that's what he's saying. Okay? When you are in the higher levels of consciousness, it's not an image anymore. It's a reality. It's the difference between you and your photograph. The photograph is in the physical world. You are in the higher world. So, But this image can also become more and more perfect. We know that now. The high density picture that you see nowadays is more perfect than a low density picture. Okay, so it has become perfect. It must put off. And how does it do that? It must put off. What is the it? The spirit. Okay, must put off the blind, marred, mutilated, discordant movements of the ignorance and put on the inherence of that light, peace, bliss, harmony, universality, mastery, purity, perfection. Look at Srinivas' praise. Okay? If some student had written this, the teacher would say, hey, don't exaggerate. Limit yourself to one or two, but why are you going on? So said this thing, and each one, if you examine, you will see that there is a slight difference. Inherent of that light. First of all, an illumination, then peace. Okay, absolutely peace. But that peace is also bliss. And that bliss is not limited to one. It's a harmony. It is everywhere. Okay, it becomes universal. It is there everywhere. Wherever you turn, you will see that harmony and peace and you become master. Master of what? Your own body, mind, life. Purity. No impure thoughts, no impure vibration, no impure anything at all. Perfection. It must convert itself into a receptacle of the divine knowledge. What's a receptacle? It's a vessel, like a jar or a jug or whatever. Okay. In Savitri, Srinivasa says towards the end, he says, I will pour delight into you as into a jar. So here he used the word spectacle, receptacle, okay, of divine knowledge, an instrument of divine willpower and force of being, a channel of divine love, joy and beauty. So you can become the receptacle itself, or you can become an instrument, or you can become a channel. Again, see how many possibilities are there. You can become a receptacle. Okay? The whole vessel is full of divine knowledge. Or you can become an instrument. Okay? You do good to others. You can become the instrument of a divine action through you to somebody. Okay? Of divine willpower and force of being. A channel of divine love, joy and beauty. Okay? This is the transformation to be. By the way, how can you become an instrument? I'll give you one idea, okay, one example. Then you'll see how you can become an instrument. Somebody came to Raman Maharshi, okay, and told them that it is a couple. And they came and said that we have been married for 40 years, or maybe 30 years, or whatever. And we have not had a single child. So with your blessings, we want a child. Then Raman Maharshi, in his own consciousness, he must have seen that, okay, this is not true. But remember that he is in a divine consciousness and he is not got any individual will of his own. So he becomes an instrument of the divine will. If the divine will wants, through him, they can get the child. And they did get the child next year. Okay. So it's not he who is permitting that. It's not he who is giving gifting. He has become an instrument of the divine. Okay. So that's an example of the instrument of the divine. But you can also become a channel. Okay. So it's interesting if you see the three words. Okay. Srinivasa is very, very fond of giving all the possibilities. Receptacle, you are yourself divine knowledge and divine will and divine power and everything. Or you can become an instrument. You are not a receptacle but an instrument. And the third level is the channel. Those to whom you are channeling your love, joy and beauty may receive or may not receive. But in the case of instrumentation, they are receiving because you become an instrument of the success. So very clearly you can see three levels. You become the divine receptacle. You can become an instrument, not fully a receptacle, but divine action is taking place through you and effectively. And you can become a channel also, and it may have an effect, may not have an effect. Okay. So this is what Srinivasa is saying, that All these things are possible, not depending on you, but depending on the other persons. This is the transformation to be effected, an integral transformation of all that we now are or seem to be. Now, he is adding this, that we now are. So what are we now? We are body, mind, life. We are not more anything than that. Now, look at the word now. Huh? Now we are only body, mind, life. We are not our soul. Or then he make it even clearer. We seem to be. Actually, we are not body, mind, life. So we are seeming to be the body, mind, life. See how clear Srenda is. Okay? By the joining yoga of the finite being in time. Which is the finite being in time? Your body, mind, life. With the eternal and infinite. So we can see very clearly how each word you have to be very careful. You can't skip a single word. He has just added that say, or seem to be. He has given you a total different view of the thing, how it has to be seen. Okay, so what's the time? 33. So we have done 2 paras and we have only 2 minutes left. So we can't start the next one. The next one is all these difficult results. No one has told you that it's very easy to do all this. So all these difficult results can become possible only if there is an immense conversion. We'll take it up next time. Okay. All these difficult results. Okay?
Okay, merci Rangada.
Okay.
Bonne journée.
Yeah. I found it very, very interesting. All the differences in all the words, all the different cases he is giving. Huh? Yeah. Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, au revoir everybody. Have a nice day.